A lot of people talk about the fighters of today, particularly heavyweights, not matching up to the fighters of yesteryear. Now, Andy Ruiz has been inactive over the past couple years. If we look at his box rec here, he fought Chris Arreola in 2021. That was back in May of this year. His previous fight to that was Anthony Joshua back in 2019. No fights in 2020 at all. And this is not good for Andy Ruiz. And if this era of boxing isn't as strong or the performances aren't as impressive as the performances in some eras of yesteryear, then it might be because of the lack of activity of some of these fighters. You look at Canelo, who is doing great things right now for the sport. He's fought how many times in the past year? Is it 3 or 4 times? I mean, that is incredible for a fighter of his stature and caliber. Because generally speaking, particularly in America, you're seeing these guys get out once a year, twice a year. That's a good year for some of these American fighters, especially the guys with PBC. PBC are notorious for not getting their fighters out anywhere near often enough. And as Mike Tyson used to say so many times, you have to fight often in order to be sharp. You have to fight often in order to be at your best. Because if not, then every time you step in the ring, you're going to be shaking off the ring rust if you only fight once a year. Now, there are exceptions to the rule. You have the likes of Floyd Mayweather, who would take years out the ring, step back in the ring and look fresh as a daisy. He looked like brand new. But most fighters do suffer ring rust, or at least a lot of fighters. Let me not say most. Certainly a lot of fighters suffer from ring rust. And one of the things that causes ring rust is the downtime where they're not training, where they might be eating not the right kind of food, they might be drinking, they might be staying up late. They're doing things that are not keeping their body in optimum condition. So when they get back in the gym, it's, not necessarily a weight loss camp, although for the likes of Andy Ruiz and some other fighters it might be, but your body can just feel a bit cranky. It can feel a bit stiff. Your timing can be a bit off. If you're not a gym rat, if you're not a guy that stays in the gym all the time. So, yeah, I think this is a big problem in boxing today. Certainly in yesteryear, back in the 90s and the 80s and beyond, fighters were generally a lot more active than they are today. But today, of course, there's a lot of money in the sport. And because of that, not that there wasn't a lot of money back in the days, there was, but now there seems to be even more money knocking around. And because of that, the managers and the promoters and the TV networks want to preserve fighters more than they used to. Back in the days, they just, get them out, and get them out again and work them to death, right? But nowadays, they realize that a fighter is only as old as the number of fights they've had, as the amount of punishment they've taken. And so with certain fighters who they believe have a decent following and what have you, they want to try and preserve them, it seems. And that's obviously a good thing for the fighter's health. But there's a balance that has to be reached whereby the fans are satisfied because they're getting the kind of performances they want from a fighter. And they're seeing the fighter as in, fighting often enough for their satisfaction. And like I say, with the likes of Andy Ruiz, hasn't been fighting enough, and so many other PBC fighters just not getting the activity that we would like to see them get. Obviously, in the early days of PBC, when they had boxing on all these different channels in America, it was great. But now it's like the opposite of that. The PBC experiment didn't work in terms of trying to bring boxing back to the masses. The masses didn't go for it, sadly. And we're left with what we have right now, which is PBC doing shows exclusively on Showtime and Fox. Those two networks right there. So it is what it is. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Now, Andy Ruiz is talking about fighting Deontay Wilder, but there was also speculation over the past couple years of him fighting, who else was it? Luis Ortiz, Adam Kalnacki, I think they mentioned at one stage. They might have even talked about Hellenius and Charles Martin. Charles Martin is now fighting Luis Ortiz. I mean, you do wonder, why isn't it Andy Ruiz fighting Luis Ortiz? And if not Luis Ortiz, then Charles Martin. Who is he fighting? Is he going to fight the winner of that? And if he does fight the winner of that, and that fight's in January, then when's that going to be? May? So he will have been out the ring a year again. But then again, I suppose Charles Martin and Luis Ortiz will have been out the ring for, was it close to a year by the time they fight in January, something like that. But they would have been in the ring more recently than Ruiz if the winner fights Ruiz. So, yeah, it's a strange setup over there. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And out of the names I've mentioned, who would you like to see Andy Ruiz fight? If he could just jump straight back in, to a Deontay Wilder fight, perfect. Crossroads situation. Would Wilder want that right away? Would his team want that right away? Or would they want to have Wilder, go knock somebody out first and then jump back in against an Andy Ruiz? Who knows? Personally, I'd like to see him jump straight in there with Ruiz, but he does have to recover from that beating he took from Tyson Fury, because that was a vicious knockout he suffered, and there can be neurological issues and what have you coming back from that type of beating. So, needs the rest, needs to get healthy and be okay, get back in the gym, see how he feels. But if he feels good, I'd like to see that Andy Ruiz fight sooner rather than later, rather than Andy Ruiz. I mean, how old is he now? Let me check his box record again. Andy Ruiz is 32, right? 32 years of age. It doesn't have his birthday on there. Career date, yeah, no birthday. So let's say he's going to be 33 next year rather than between. Hang on, no. No, I think he was born in September, wasn't he? Okay, so he's just turned 32. I believe he was born in September. So 32, going to be 33 next year. So, yeah, if he fights the winner of Charles Martin, Luis Ortiz, then when's he going to fight somebody like a Deontay Wilder? The back end of next year? When he turns 33? Or will it be 2023? You know what I mean? It's just like these guys' careers are moving too slowly for my liking. And as I said earlier on, I don't think it's good for them. I think a lot of these fighters are actually missing their prime years through inactivity, or wasting their prime years. Let me know how you guys feel in the comments below.